On a peaceful summer afternoon in Atlanta, James Carter reclined on a lounge chair, soaking in the warmth of the sun. His backyard was an oasis, a pristine swimming pool shimmering under the golden rays, the fruit of 15 years of relentless hard work and sacrifice. With every breath, he savored the tranquility, the reward of a lifetime of service as a police officer. He had finally made it. This was home. This was peace. Then came the sirens. The shrill wail of police cruisers shattered the stillness, followed by the screech of tires against asphalt. James sat up, his heart sinking. Through the slats of his fence, he spotted 2 patrol cars coming to a hard stop in front of his house. The officers stepped out, their hands instinctively resting on their holsters as they approached his gate. "Sir, we received a report of a suspicious person trespassing in this pool area," one officer announced, his tone sharp and authoritative. James exhaled slowly. He had seen this coming. It wasn't the first time. His eyes flickered toward the house next door. Behind the curtain, just as he expected, Linda Thompson peered out with a smug smile, her arms folded in satisfaction. This was a game to her, a power play. But what she didn't know? This time, James was ready. Moving into his dream home was supposed to be a moment of pride, a celebration of everything James Carter had worked for. After 15 years of service as a police officer, countless overtime shifts, and a disciplined savings plan, he finally had his own place in an upscale Atlanta neighborhood. The house was perfect, a sprawling 2-story home with a backyard oasis, complete with a sparkling blue pool that shimmered under the Georgia sun. This was his reward, his fresh start. But not everyone welcomed him. The first time he noticed Linda Thompson, she was standing behind her 2nd-story window, phone pressed to her ear. Her gaze was locked onto him, assessing. He gave a polite wave, but she quickly disappeared behind the curtain. The interaction left an odd taste in his mouth, but he brushed it off. New neighbors could be curious after all. The next day, while James was at the hardware store, a security notification pinged his phone. Checking the footage, his stomach tightened. There she was, Linda, strolling confidently through his backyard gate as if she belonged there. Dressed in an expensive swimsuit, she laid her towel on one of his lounge chairs, dipping her feet into the water, utterly at ease. When James returned home, he wasted no time confronting her. "Oh," she exclaimed, a hand pressed to her chest in mock surprise. "I thought you were the new pool guy. The previous owners always let me use their pool." James kept his voice steady. "Ma'am, I own this house now. Please ask permission before entering." Her lips curled into a slow, knowing smirk. "You? The owner? That's surprising." James clenched his jaw as she gathered her things, muttering just loud enough for him to hear. "We'll see about that." The weeks that followed turned James Carter's dream home into a battlefield. Linda Thompson had made it clear. She didn't respect his ownership, and she had no intention of stopping. It started with little things. One evening, James arrived home to find a group of strangers splashing in his pool, laughing and sipping cocktails as if they were at a luxury resort. Linda, reclining on a lounge chair, barely looked up. "Oh, relax," she drawled. "We're just having a little fun. The pool was practically begging to be used." James clenched his jaw, but remained composed. "This is private property," he reminded her. "You're trespassing." She waved a dismissive hand. "The previous owners let me use it all the time. You're new here. You'll understand how things work soon enough." He installed more security cameras, determined to document everything. The footage showed her testing the lock on his gate late at night, peering into his windows, and even attempting to use an old key copy, one that must have belonged to the previous owners. It was unsettling, but James remained patient. Then came the false complaints. Linda began attending HOA meetings, making snide remarks about how certain types of people were affecting neighborhood property values. She filed formal complaints about James's supposedly unkempt lawn, even though his grass was trimmed to perfection. Neighbors murmured in agreement, some too intimidated to contradict her. But the final straw came when James returned home one afternoon to find Linda's book club gathered in his backyard. 8 women, wine glasses in hand, lounging by his pool without a care in the world. "Oh, don't be so uptight," Linda scoffed when he confronted her. "It's just water. What's the harm?" James didn't raise his voice. He simply pulled out his phone, scrolling through the recorded security footage. "Ma'am," he said, voice steady, "this is your last warning. Next time, I'm calling the police." Linda smirked, unfazed. "Go ahead. My husband golfs with the precinct captain." James gave a slow, knowing smile. She thought she had power, but he had something better: patience and a plan. James spent the next few days meticulously planning. He wasn't going to resort to anger or confrontation. He had a better idea. After hours of research, he discovered a non-toxic, invisible pool dye used by maintenance companies. It was completely safe, but had one interesting characteristic. It reacted to chemicals found in high-end sunscreens and cosmetics, turning the skin a bright, unmistakable green. It wasn't permanent, but it would take at least a week to fade. On a quiet Friday night, he moved carefully, pouring the recommended dose of dye into the pool water. It remained perfectly clear, completely undetectable. The trap was set. The next morning, as James sipped his coffee on the patio, he overheard Linda's unmistakable voice carrying over from her backyard. "Yes, the owner's gone all day Saturday. Just come over. It'll be fine." James smiled. He packed a small bag, locked his front door, and drove off. But instead of heading out for the day, he parked around the corner, walked back through his side gate, and settled into his home office. His security cameras were ready. At precisely 2 p.m., the backyard gate creaked open. Linda strutted in, followed by 6 of her friends, all carrying designer beach bags, wearing expensive swimsuits, and laughing as if they were VIP guests at a resort. Without hesitation, they slathered on their luxury sunscreen, the kind James had specifically researched. One by one, they entered the pool, blissfully unaware of what was about to unfold. It started subtly. A woman near the steps frowned, lifting her hand from the water. "Linda, your hands." Linda glanced down. Her smirk vanished. A deep, unnatural green tint was spreading up her arms. The realization hit her just as another woman let out a horrified gasp. Then came the screaming. The vibrant green spread rapidly, staining their torsos, streaking through their platinum blonde hair, seeping into their carefully contoured makeup. A wave of sheer panic erupted as they scrambled for the pool's edge, clawing at their skin, eyes wide with disbelief. "My daughter's wedding is next week," one of them sobbed, staring at her now swamp-colored legs. Linda, drenched and furious, whipped her head around, her eyes locking onto the blinking red light of James's security camera. James leaned back in his chair, took a long sip of his lemonade, and smiled. Karma had arrived. By that evening, James uploaded a carefully edited video from his security footage. It began with clips of Linda's repeated trespassing, followed by the now infamous pool incident. The background music? The same smooth jazz Linda had played at her unauthorized pool parties. The internet devoured it. The video racked up millions of views overnight. Comment sections erupted with laughter and disbelief. Memes flooded social media, with captions like, "The Grinch of the gated community," and "Shrek's cousin gets what she deserves." News outlets quickly picked up the story, with headlines like, "Entitled neighbor gets green with envy," literally. James remained silent, watching as Linda's carefully curated reputation crumbled. Her real estate firm, desperate to control the damage, released a statement. "We uphold respect for property rights. The actions in this video do not reflect our company's values." But the public backlash was relentless. Prospective clients flooded their social media pages with green emojis and comments questioning their ethics. Even Linda's closest allies began to distance themselves. "She did the same thing to us," one neighbor finally admitted. "She tried to get our Christmas decorations banned for being too tacky." Another revealed, "She called the HOA on my son's lemonade stand, claiming it lowered property values." Desperate to regain control, Linda posted a tearful video of her own, still faintly tinged green. "This was an attack," she sobbed. "I was targeted." But instead of sympathy, the response was ruthless. Viewers replayed the clip, zooming in on her still green skin, making jokes about her starring in the next superhero movie. The final humiliation came at the country club, where her husband was overheard grumbling to his golf buddies, "Do you know how hard it is to close real estate deals when your wife is literally green?" 2 weeks later, a large "For Sale" sign appeared in front of Linda's house. Slowly but surely, the neighborhood was reclaiming its peace. James didn't celebrate. He simply leaned back in his lounge chair, gazed at his now serene backyard, and took a deep breath of satisfaction. Justice had been served, not through anger, but through patience, strategy, and a little poetic irony. With Linda gone, the neighborhood began to transform in ways James had never expected. What was once a place of hushed conversations and wary glances became a real community. Neighbors who had once kept to themselves started to gather, and the walls of silence Linda had built slowly crumbled. James's backyard, the center of so much past conflict, now became a hub of joy. Families gathered for weekend barbecues, sharing laughter over grilled ribs and cold lemonade. Kids from down the street splashed in the pool, practicing their strokes for the local swim team. Even the once quiet retirees who lived nearby found themselves drawn into the new atmosphere, chatting with parents and enjoying the warmth of summer evenings. One night, as James sat by the pool, a small package appeared on his patio table. Inside was a framed photograph, a gift from a neighbor. It showed 6 green-streaked women running through the neighborhood, their expensive swimsuits and horrified expressions captured in vivid detail. He let out a deep, satisfied chuckle. Linda had tried to make him feel like an outsider, but in the end, she had done the exact opposite. In trying to push him away, she had unintentionally brought everyone else together. When a local news station reached out for an interview, eager to hear his take on the viral story, James simply smiled and said, "Everyone's welcome to use my pool. They just need to ask first." As he watched the neighborhood kids laughing and playing in the water, he realized the true moral of the story. Sometimes, the best way to deal with entitled people isn't through anger or confrontation. It's through patience, strategy, and just a little poetic justice. If this story brought you satisfaction, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Did Linda get exactly what she deserved, or would you have handled it another way? Drop a 1 in the comments if you think justice was served, or a 2 if you have a different take on the situation. Have you ever had to deal with an entitled neighbor or someone who just wouldn't respect boundaries? Share your experience. We'd love to hear your story. And if you enjoyed this tale of karma, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories of poetic justice and satisfying payback.